don't make anyone make you feel bad about your decision to leave. It's your decision. If you've served your time and you're moving on, that's up to you. For some reason, there's like a stigma, I feel, about people who get out before retirement. Realize that most people don't retire from the military, and it's perfectly okay to look out for a new job, to leave the military if it's not meeting your needs anymore, and if you're not into it anymore. Don't feel bad about it. It's your decision.
Welcome to the Seven Eagle Group podcast, your home for inspiring stories, valuable tips, and great advice from hard-charging veterans so you can lead a more rewarding and lucrative post-military career.
Hey everyone, Megan here from Seven Eagle, and I'm here with Sam Gassman, and she's currently the manager of communications for Northrop Grumman, and she's going to share with us today a little bit about her experience in the military. So to get things started, Sam, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam, usually with my friends, and Samantha if I'm in trouble, so thanks.
Nice. Get that. Yeah, it was always Megan Elizabeth if I'm in trouble, right? The middle name kind of thing. And then Meg or Megan with my friends. Yep.
Right. And by the way, we have the same middle name, it turns out.
Oh, fun. All right. So first off, Sam, can I ask, please just tell us a little bit about your experience, your time in the military, your service, some of the experiences you had and your occupation.
Sure. So I started off in Air Force ROTC when I went to college, and then I commissioned as a lieutenant, and I was picked up to be a navigator. And at the time, I had no idea what that meant, but it sounded cool, and I would get to fly, so I thought, why not? So I joined, and I went to undergraduate nav training over at Randolph Air Force Base right before they moved it to Pensacola. So that tells you the time frame and how long ago that was. And when I graduated from nav school, I had the opportunity to go into Air Force Special Operations Command and become a navigator on the MC-130P Combat Shadow, which at the time was kind of right up there with the Talon and the other AFSOC aircraft, and I thought that was really exciting. So I went over to AFSOC and I did more training after Randolph. I had spent already about a year at Randolph, and then I did more specialized training at Little Rock and then Kirtland, and then finally got to qualify on the MC-130. And then I went to my first duty station out in Okinawa, Japan. I was with the 17th SOS, the Jackals. No mission too demanding was our slogan there, and had a great time out in Okinawa. It was a big learning opportunity for me. I was in my early 20s and had some growing pains, both with the Air Force and just personally, but it worked out. And then my next assignment was over to Hurlburt Field, still flying the Shadow, but that was where I got experience as an executive officer and then as a flight commander, which turned out to be really valuable when I went to go leave the service a couple of years later. So 3 years at Hurlburt, and then I got out after 8 years.
Awesome. And you deployed a couple times too. Can you tell us a little bit about your deployment experiences?
Yeah, sure. So from Okinawa, I deployed to Afghanistan back in 2012. It was a very interesting experience. There was a lot of things going on at that time, several missions that still stick out in my mind today. Things that, came up in my memory, a couple of years ago when we had the withdrawal, and kind of a lot of complex emotions there. Yeah. But I think the deployment itself, it was, I feel like we did some good work out there. But, in current context, it feels a little bit different, but overall it was good. And then from Florida, I actually deployed to Djibouti, Africa. And so we got to support the mission out there, OEF, Horn of Africa. And that one was pretty interesting as well. There was actually a mission that made worldwide news that I was a part of. It was December 21st, 2013, I believe, where there was a situation out in Bor, South Sudan, and the CV-22s and our 2 aircraft were sent to evacuate some Americans from South Sudan. Unfortunately, the CV-22s took fire as they went over the airfield, and they were really badly damaged, and them and us had to work really well together to make sure that they had enough fuel to get to an emergency aircraft or emergency airport so that they could land, take care of their injured, and take care of their aircraft. So that was a pretty thrilling mission to be part of, but it definitely taught me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that was a pretty rewarding experience for sure to be a part of that.
Yeah, I wish it was under a little bit different circumstances. Unfortunately, there were a few folks that were injured in the back of the CV-22. I believe one of them wasn't able to return to service, but the other 3, I believe, were. So yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many flying hours do you have? Do you have a total number for your total number of hours that you've flown?
I do. I had 1,600 total with 305 in combat.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. Well, thank you for your
Thank you.
service. Indeed. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about your experience in transitioning out of the military? How was that for you?
Yeah, sure. So the decision was equal parts personal as it was professional. From a professional standpoint, my aircraft was retiring. The MC-130P was being replaced by the J model, and there was still a role for navigators on that aircraft, but it meant that I would have to retrain, requalify, start over. And I actually had a slot to go and train as a fire control officer on the gunship, which I considered for a time, but ultimately I decided that perhaps this was the natural close to my career to that point, and that maybe it was time for a change. And so I decided to get out. And at the time, I was dating the guy who would later become my husband, and he had orders to Los Angeles. And so I decided to leave the Air Force and move from Florida all the way across country to LA and start over with this guy that I was with, and hope, thankfully he kind of made it worth my while.
Yeah.
He proposed a few months after we moved there, but there was a time frame when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is crazy. But no, it worked out. And so from a personal standpoint, there was the piece of, I know that multiple relationships can work, but I haven't seen too many that are successful. And with our two different career fields and my aircraft basically being contained to Hurlburt, I knew that there was either going to be a lot of separation or it wasn't going to work. And so we made that decision, and it worked out. We have 3 kids now. We've moved all over the place with the Air Force, and in some ways I still get to serve, as a military spouse.
Yes, I understand you do a lot for the military spouses. Can you talk about that for a bit?
I wouldn't say I do a lot, but I try. No, I think the biggest part for me on that front is just trying to bring to light some of the challenges that our community has with finding employment and maintaining employment. I feel like there are employers that do this really well, and they accept, the unique circumstances that we're in. And I think that actually COVID may have helped show that you can work remotely and be productive and successful. And so even though that experience was not kind to a lot of us, I do feel like from an employment perspective, it demonstrated that people can be valuable and they can contribute from a remote environment. And so I would say that all I do on that front really is I try to write about some of the challenges that we face as a community and advocate for employment with those who can make a change, make a difference.
All right. And then as far as, offering advice to our service members in terms of, a wide range of things, what advice can you offer, for them, those that are transitioning, those that are looking for a job, interviewing, resume, just what advice
The whole
do you have?
gamut.
Yeah, the whole gamut. The topic of conversation is wide open. What advice do you have for our service members?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. I would say the first thing is don't make anyone make you feel bad about your decision to leave. It's your decision, and if you've served your time and you're moving on, that's up to you. I think for some reason, there's like a stigma, I feel, about people who get out before retirement. Realize that most people don't retire from the military, and it's perfectly okay to look out for a new job, to leave the military if it's not meeting your needs anymore, and if you're not into it anymore. So that's the first thing, is don't feel bad about it. It's your decision. And then the next piece is that, I think, because for a lot of us, our jobs were kind of chosen for us. I mean, in some cases, you got to kind of pick from maybe a few career fields that were open, and you got to pursue what you wanted. But for other people, your job was given to you based on the needs of the service, and it may not be aligned with what you want to do now. Maybe you've grown up a little bit, you have changed what you want to do. So I would encourage folks to look outside of their career field. You're under no obligation to continue with what you did in the military. For me, that was a given, because there's no such thing as navigators on the commercial aircraft. They have things like GPS.
Right.
So it's kind of like you have to find a new one. But for those folks who have, have jobs in the military that do translate, I would say don't feel obligated to continue if you don't like it or want to try something new. The beauty of being a civilian is that you can pursue what you want. And the interests that you have, the passions that you have, they're not frivolous, they're not unnecessary. If there's something that you feel confident about, then go for it. You can build your career around what you want to do. It doesn't have to be associated with your job title in the military. And then the last thing I would say is, when you're in the military, your path, your career path is somewhat linear. You gain rank, you gain experience, you gain subject matter expertise. And as you progress through the ranks, you gain more responsibility as a people leader, and you progress from there. In the civilian world, though, it's not quite as laid out. It's not as linear as perhaps we're used to. An example from my career is I was a manager in human resources, and I decided that maybe HR wasn't the right fit for me anymore. And so I wanted to pursue communications, which is where I am now. But in order to do so, I had to take a pretty significant pay cut and a grade cut. And I more or less had to start at the bottom of that function again. So my career was kind of doing this, and then it went like this, and now it's kind of coming on,
Not like the housing market.
Yeah, exactly. It's all over the place. And so
Right.
I would say that that's okay, that if you have to take a role to grow your expertise before you can move up, and maybe it's a step down or it's a lateral, that's perfectly okay. There's not like a track that you have to follow. You can develop your own path to make the career that you want.
Yeah. And for me personally, at the end of the day, I want to, when I close my office door at the end of the day, I want to feel happy with the work that I did. And, sometimes that means taking a pay cut. I'd rather do that personally than chase the dollars, chase the money, and just be miserable doing what I'm doing. So I think,
Yeah,
and I'm a good example of making a career pivot myself. I was, did my time in the service, Intel the whole time, and I'm doing 180 degrees, and I want to get into marketing and digital
there you go.
marketing in the digital space. So,
Yeah.
because I'd rather be happy than, make all those dollars personally.
Exactly. And I mean, I was a flyer and a flight commander and an XO, and what I do now has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. I do, internal communications for Northrop Grumman, and that has nothing to do with any of the skills that I learned in the military. So
Yeah.
you can totally do it.
Can you tell us a bit about, like, what does that mean? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, sure. So I support the organization called Global Corporate Responsibility, which is comprised of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group and also the Corporate Citizenship Group. And so my team and we provide communications support to that function. So that can be anything from executive messages to all employees. It can be contributions to our various newsletters that we have across the company. It's things like the intranet and maintaining that page and that information. And then some of my favorite parts of the job are when we get to support things like Military Appreciation Month, Veterans Day, which is coming up, although I'm not sure when you're broadcasting this, so maybe it's already passed, but yeah, so we get to support all of that. And what's really cool is, sometimes employees don't know the extent to which Northrop Grumman provides for the communities in which we live and work. And so part of our job is to showcase all the great contributions and donations and volunteer hours that our employees contribute. And that's really exciting.
Oh, that's really cool. That is
Yeah.
exciting. Cool. And I understand you have you're also in your part-time, I guess, work that you do. You're also an author. So can
I
you tell us a little
am.
about the book that you've published and the one that you have coming out?
Yeah, sure. So when my son was born about 5 years ago, I read a lot of picture books to him, and I continue to do so today. And as I was sitting there reading with him, I was thinking, I think I'd like to try this. I think I'd like to try writing a children's book. And so I learned a lot about the market. I submitted some very terrible queries to some really good agents, and they rejected me quite swiftly.
Aw.
No, it's fine. It's part of the process.
Sure.
Because the work that I was submitting was not as brilliant as I thought it was. But that made me really dig in and learn more about the publishing industry and what it was all about. And I learned, how to write in a niche that was more unique, and how to get an agent and how to get published. And so I was actually really fortunate to get a literary agent, and we went on submission with Dear Rainbow Baby, which is the book that I have out now, and it got picked up. And so last year on Rainbow Baby Day, August 22nd, Dear Rainbow Baby was published and brought into the world. And so, yeah, so that's available anywhere books are sold online. And then the next one is going to be by the same publisher, and it's a little bit lighter in nature. It's called Peanut and Buttercup, and it's about a very conceited racehorse and her companion goat.
That sounds really interesting. I can't wait to check
Thank
it
you.
out. That sounds like
Yeah,
it's going to be a good book. Peanut butter
thanks.
and cup. I like it.
Yeah, Peanut and Buttercup. They're a dynamic duo.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, Sam, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for getting on today with us and for giving us all your knowledge and your experience and answering all of my questions and all the advice that you offered today and the advice and the work that you currently do, on social media, supporting veterans and their spouses. And so I want to give you an opportunity too, like where can other people, find you, follow you, whether it's, LinkedIn or whatever social media platforms that you have. Please tell us where we can support you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to post every day if I can around 9 a.m. Eastern time. And then if you search the hashtag HeyNav, then you'll find all my posts, at least the ones that I've started using with those. And or you can go to samanthagassman.com and I've got some information there. That's mostly my author website though. So if you want to do author book stuff, then that's the website. If it's more veterans and transition information, then follow me on LinkedIn.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.